The lunch rush had just begun at a busy fast food restaurant in a small American town when Maria Bennett noticed the man sitting outside near the entrance. Maria was 27, hardworking, soft-spoken, and one of the most reliable employees at the restaurant. She had been working there for nearly 3 years, saving every dollar she could, because she dreamed of eventually renting a better apartment for herself and helping her younger brother finish college. Her job was not glamorous, but she took pride in it. She arrived early, cleaned tables, prepared orders, helped customers, and stayed late whenever the manager needed someone to cover a shift. That afternoon, however, she noticed something that made her forget about the busy restaurant around her. A thin, tired-looking homeless man was sitting quietly beside the building. His clothes were worn, his shoes were covered in dust, and he kept his eyes lowered whenever customers walked past. He wasn't begging loudly or bothering anyone. He simply sat there watching people carry food inside. Maria watched him through the window for several minutes. She noticed that he looked especially tired. When a family walked out carrying burgers and fries, his eyes briefly followed the food before he looked away. Maria's heart sank. She knew what it felt like to be hungry. She remembered being a teenager and sometimes skipping meals because her mother didn't have enough money. Without thinking too much, Maria prepared an extra burger that had been made incorrectly. Company policy said incorrectly prepared food could not be given away without management approval, but Maria thought one burger would not matter. She wrapped it carefully, grabbed a bottle of water, and walked outside. The man looked up in surprise when Maria crouched beside him. "Here," she said softly. "You should eat something." The man stared at the burger as if he couldn't believe it was really for him. "Are you sure?" he asked. Maria smiled. "Yes, please." He slowly accepted it. "Thank you," he whispered. Maria noticed his hands trembling slightly as he opened the wrapper. She stood there for a moment, watching him take his first bite. His expression changed immediately. It was not simply the taste of the food. It was the feeling of being treated like a human being. "God bless you," he said quietly. Maria smiled. "You don't have to thank me. Everyone deserves a meal." Unfortunately, someone else had been watching. From inside the restaurant, the shift manager, Karen Miller, saw Maria giving away the burger. Karen was known for being strict about company rules. She rushed outside, her expression angry. "Maria, what are you doing?" Maria stood up immediately. "It was an incorrect order, and I thought—" Karen interrupted her. "You thought? You're not allowed to give food away without authorization." Maria tried to explain that the burger would otherwise be thrown away, but Karen refused to listen. "Rules are rules. Customers pay for our food. We can't just hand it to anyone who asks." "He didn't even ask," Maria replied quietly. "He was hungry." Karen's expression hardened. "That doesn't matter." The homeless man lowered his head. He looked embarrassed and began wrapping the remaining burger again. Maria felt terrible. "Please don't take it away," she said. Karen looked at her coldly. "Go inside, now." Maria followed her inside. She thought perhaps the matter would end with a warning. Instead, Karen called her into the manager's office. "You've violated company policy," Karen said. "And you've done it before." Maria was shocked. "When?" Karen mentioned 2 other occasions. When Maria had given leftover food to people outside the restaurant, Maria admitted it, explaining that she had never charged anyone and that the food would have been thrown away anyway. Karen shook her head. "You're fired." Maria felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath her. "But I need this job," she whispered. Karen handed her the termination notice. "You should have thought about that before breaking the rules." Maria walked into the employee area and removed her name badge with trembling hands. Several co-workers looked at her sympathetically, but nobody knew what to say. She packed her belongings into a small bag and walked toward the exit. Outside, the homeless man was still there. Maria stopped beside him. "I'm sorry," she said. He looked at her with confusion. "For what?" "I lost my job because I gave you that burger." The man looked genuinely shocked. "You lost your job because of me?" Maria shook her head. "No, because of a rule. But I don't regret giving it to you." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he asked, "What's your name?" "Maria." He nodded slowly. "Maria, you have no idea what you just did." She smiled sadly. "I think I do. I gave someone a meal. The man lowered his eyes. Maybe you did more than that. Maria didn't understand what he meant. She walked away toward the bus stop, unaware that the man she had just helped was not actually a homeless stranger. His name was Robert Hayes, and he was the owner of the entire restaurant chain. For the past several months, Robert had been secretly visiting his restaurants dressed as an ordinary homeless man. He wanted to see how employees treated people when they believed nobody important was watching. That afternoon, he had witnessed everything. He had seen Karen's reaction. He had seen Maria's kindness. And he had seen the moment Maria lost her job because she chose compassion over fear. Robert pulled a phone from inside his worn jacket and made one call. "Cancel my meeting tomorrow morning," he said. There was a pause. "No, I need to deal with something at the restaurant first." Then he looked toward the bus stop where Maria was disappearing into the distance. "And find me everything you can about an employee named Maria Bennett." His voice became serious. The following morning, Maria woke up before sunrise out of habit. For almost 3 years, she had started her mornings at the restaurant. But now she had nowhere to go. She sat on the edge of her small bed and stared at the termination notice on the table. She worried about rent, groceries, and her younger brother's tuition. She had no idea how she would manage without her paycheck. Still, when she remembered the hungry man sitting outside the restaurant, she didn't regret her decision. She would rather lose a job than become someone who could watch another person go hungry and do nothing. Meanwhile, across town, Robert Hayes entered the restaurant through the front door, wearing a tailored dark suit. Nobody recognized him at first. Karen was standing behind the counter when she saw him. "Good morning, sir. Can I help you?" Robert looked at her calmly. "Yes, I'd like to speak with the manager." Karen smiled professionally. "That's me," Robert nodded. "Then we have something to discuss." Karen led him into the office. Robert closed the door behind him and placed a folder on the desk. "Do you know who I am?" Karen looked confused. "No. Sir?" Robert removed a photograph from the folder and placed it in front of her. It showed him standing at the opening of the company's newest restaurant. Karen's face went pale. "You're Robert Hayes." Robert nodded. "The owner?" "Yes." Karen immediately became nervous. "Mr. Hayes, I didn't know you were coming." "I know." Robert sat down. "That's why I came." Karen tried to explain what had happened with Maria, insisting that she had only been enforcing company policy. Robert listened without interrupting. When she finished, he opened another folder. Inside were photographs from security cameras. One showed Maria giving the burger to the hungry man. Another showed Karen confronting her. Another showed Maria leaving the restaurant with her belongings. Robert looked at Karen. "You fired the only employee in this building who followed the spirit of our company while you followed the rule." Karen tried to defend herself. "She violated policy." Robert nodded. "She did." Karen looked relieved. "But you misunderstood the purpose of the policy." Her relief disappeared. "Our policy exists to prevent theft and waste. It was never created to punish someone for feeding a hungry person." Karen became silent. Robert continued, "And there is something else you should know." He stood and walked toward the window. "That man outside yesterday was me." Karen stared at him. "What?" "I was testing this restaurant." He turned toward her. "I wanted to know how our employees treated people when they thought nobody important was watching." Karen's face went completely pale. Robert continued, "Maria didn't know who I was. She didn't know I owned this building. She didn't expect a reward. She simply saw someone hungry and helped him." Karen lowered her head. Robert's voice remained calm. "That's leadership." Later that morning, Robert found Maria at a small coffee shop where she had gone to look for job openings. He walked inside and approached her table. Maria looked up. She recognized him immediately. "You're the man from yesterday." Robert smiled. "Yes." Maria looked confused. "Are you okay?" Robert sat across from her. "I came to thank you." Maria smiled awkwardly. "You don't have to." "I do." He reached into his briefcase and placed a folder on the table. Maria looked at it. "What is this?" "Your job." She stared at him. "I'm not going back." Robert smiled. "You're not going back to the same job." Maria looked confused. I want you to become assistant manager at one of our new locations. She laughed nervously. Why me? Because yesterday, when you thought nobody important was watching, you showed me exactly what kind of person you are. Maria's eyes filled with emotion, but she remained composed. What about Karen? She is no longer managing that restaurant. Maria looked surprised. Robert continued, and I'm changing the policy. From now on, every restaurant in our company will have a food assistance program. Employees will be allowed to provide approved surplus meals to local shelters and people in need. Maria smiled. You're doing all that because of one burger? Robert shook his head. No, I'm doing it because one burger reminded me what this company was supposed to stand for. Maria looked down at the folder. Then she asked, What happened to the man who was sitting outside? Robert smiled. He had breakfast with me this morning. Maria smiled. I hope he's okay. He is. Robert stood. And Maria? Yes? Thank you for reminding me that a business can make money and still have a heart. Several months later, Maria became one of the most respected managers in the company. She introduced food donation programs, community meals, and a simple rule that became famous throughout the chain. Never let a hungry person leave without knowing where their next meal can come from. 1 year later, Robert invited Maria to the opening of a new restaurant. Before the ceremony, he handed her a framed photograph. It showed Maria crouching outside the old restaurant, handing a burger to the man she believed was homeless. Underneath the photograph were the words, The day you gave away one burger, you gave this company back its heart. Maria smiled. She never became famous for being the employee who was fired. She became known as the woman who proved that kindness is sometimes worth more than a rule. And Robert Hayes never again forgot the lesson he learned while pretending to be a homeless man. You can measure a person's character by how they treat someone who has nothing to offer them in return.